Good morning, fellow gardeners. This is Paul. Now I'll talk about all these exciting cuttings in the foreground soon. But today I'm most excited about these ones back here. Now, if you know about Paul Thompson, he had the 1S, which is Physical Graffiti, 2S Cosmic Charlie, 3S is Delight, and this is 4S, which makes a pale pink fruit. So I'm really excited to find this. No one really has it. It's never been named, but it is a pale pink, tasty fruit. So 4S, or some people, it's written S4, but I believe Paul Thompson called it 4S. So I'm so excited. Look at that. It's a little bit skinnier. Very unique. So 4S. Now, 5S is Purple Haze. So you can see I have 5S here, really big, thick cuttings. But then also the grower has Purple Haze, which he gave me as well. So I'm wondering, I'm going to keep these separate, but is there a difference between 5S, which is collected from Paul Thompson, and Purple Haze, which is renamed, and this one went to Florida and back. So interested to see what happens there. Now this is one that these two actually are very exciting. 6S was removed from frost. So Paul Thompson's plant died, but not before he gave away some 6S to some people, some California rare fruit growers, and look at that, I found it. So these are 6S. And then this is 7S, which has a different parent. You know, this is Houghton, or Houghton, some people say, and I believe Rixford, if I remember correctly. So 7S, and the grower says the 8S tastes a little bit better than 7S. So 7S looks very similar to Sugar Dragon, doesn't it? A little bit thicker. So that's 7S. Paul Thompson lost those plants from frost, these two. So super stoked to have them. Now, here's 8S, or also it's been renamed Arizona Purple. So this one is Arizona Purple. And I'll keep it separate, but the grower told me that Arizona Purple and Sugar Dragon are the same. So this would be 8S. So the parents of 7S and 8S are actually right here, Houghton, or Houghton, some people say, and Rixford. And there's a lot of wrong Rixfords out there that look like a G2 to me, so be careful when getting Rixford. It should be a 8 to a 10 ounce roughly sized fruit. They're smaller. Okay, now up next here is really exciting for me. This is G1, which the plant was not doing too happy, but he pulled it out and he didn't know that nobody has G1, or it's really hard to find. So out of Paul Thompson's G series, there's G1. Then there's G2, which was kind of renamed. I believe some people call it American Beauty in Southern California. And some are self-fertile and some are not. So G2 is a little bit messy. I actually have two different G2s here, just to let you know. And then these were lost in time here, and I'm most excited about these. These are G3. So these will actually bloom a little bit before American Beauty, and I believe all these need cross-pollination. But this is the G3 series. So I have all of Paul Thompson's G plants. You can definitely see this one's a little different. And this one wakes up early, they say, a little bit earlier than the others. So I'm so excited to add these to my collection. My list is getting long, but distinguished, I guess. Now, up last are these two sister seedlings that he gave me, my friend, super stoked. And these are G3 crossed with Physical Graffiti. So I'm really excited to see how that's gonna taste, because those are my two favorite varieties. I love Physical Graffiti, and I think that G3 will probably taste similar to the other G series, which I really like, or an American Beauty. So amazing 2-year-old seedlings that are sisters, but definitely look different. You can tell, look at this one. Okay, so there you go, there's the update on this half of the catch. And I'll talk about these ones soon over here. Some really exciting varieties for me to explain. Even this one is one of Paul Thompson's unknown. It's number 7, not 7S, number 7. And Broxensis blues back there too. I finally got Paul Thompson's Broxensis, I should say. Good morning, fellow gardeners. This is Paul. And here is part 2 of that collection that was given to us. I'm really excited to share it with you guys. So over here is Hylocereus trinitinensis. I believe I said it correctly. Very spiny. I saw a similar looking plant in the Facebook groups just yesterday, and that was on the island of Tobago. So Hylocereus trinitinensis, very spiny. Red flesh fruit, I believe. And this quirky one here is Hylocereus lemerii. It's very interesting. It's green up here, but man, it's like a tree trunk. Super quirky. Look at that. Lemerii. Up next, Hylocereus peruvianus, which is a white-fleshed fruit, I believe. And this one's not so hard to find. I believe Spicy Exotic sells it. I've seen it around, but I did not have it, so now I do. Now this one I don't want to mispronounce. Hylocereus venezuelensis, I believe. You can see it did not like the cold. It's grown more along the coast, so kind of turned purplish, similar to Ocamponus, so very similar. Some similar traits, you know, horny. Did look like Ocamponus, like a skinnier to me, so very interesting. And this one I believe is misspelled. And this should be a Hylocereus perpussii, but I think it's spelled wrong. Very similar to Costarricensis, very dark colored fruit. You can see this, it's rooted and it's got new growth. So I'll double check on that one, but I think it's misspelled. And over here, it's very exciting. This is a white-fleshed cetaceous. Cetaceous, some people say. So it's different than the one Spicy Exotic sells, which I have. They definitely look different. And the one I have from Spicy is, I believe, like a purple colored flesh. Now this one you can see is actually, there's some photos in Paul Thompson's book. And these are next to each other, but there are 2 versions of Jala. So this is one of them. And this looks similar to George's number 3. Whoa. Ouch. It is spiny, even though it looks a little small. A very beautiful color. And so this came from Leo. This is Leo's Jala. That's where my new friend got it from years ago. And this one is another one he got from Leo years ago. And this is Paul Thompson's number 7. Not S7, number 7. And it's actually similar to like a sugar dragon, but more horny there. And it will get 1 or 2 spines. So you can see that fruit as you saw in the photo. So very excited to see what becomes of those 2. Now here are 2 of Paul Thompson's Ocamponus. This is one, they call it Ocamponus 1. And in his book they have different numbers. And here's Ocamponus 2, so you can see how spiny it is. Look at that. So this one's really spiny, it's hard to grab. Much different than the other one. And over here is Hylocereus broxensis, which I'm excited to have finally the correct one. I don't think the one I got before is definitely not the same plant. This one is very much Ocamponus traits. And this one in the sunlight is tissue cultured Leo's dragon. So Leo's Costarricensis crossed with Megalanthus, which a few people have. But this one is a sister seedling, so I'm most excited about this little one. Look at this. So this is his number 2. So the other one was number 1, and this one is number 2. So this one's different. So I'm excited to see how that grows in our climate. And then over here, a few more. This one, he said, is the best tasting white flesh he had, but it rots very easy, hard to grow, he said. And he's been adding more calcium. So HBG white, but it's not an undatus or undatus. Something's different about this plant. But he says it's a phenomenal fruit, but likes to get stem rot, very, very temperamental variety. And over here is, this one has been rooted already. Very interesting growth. Look at the true leaves on there. But these ones are Nabina orange, sorry. I've never heard of it. I think it's from the Yahoo groups long ago, but he says it's a great tasting variety. So, and it's not from Nabina, and it's not orange. That's what he said. Now this one is orange. This is Sarong's Orange Dragon. And this one for sure came from the Yahoo groups long ago, he told me. I believe it came from Malaysia or something like that. So interested to see what happens with that. Then he had a few more that he wanted me to have from friends. This one is called Dennis. Grows different than his other varieties. Says it's a great fruit. And this interesting polyrhizis is kind of like some of George's here, but this one he says tastes different, and he calls it Skeels. So if you know anything about those, that would be very helpful. But I've never heard of them or could not find any information online. And then this last one is a Solanacereus grandiflorus. So I collect a lot of Solanacereus, and that's another one that I did not have, but now I do. So there you go. Hit us up in the comments. Let me know which ones you find most interesting, or that you would like a cutting of someday. But I'm so grateful for kind people. I mean, it's awesome to get these for free and to keep some of Paul Thompson's varieties still going. So there's all of the score that we had, part 1 and part 2. Good morning, gardeners. This is Paul, and right here is Paul Thompson's number 7 off of his unknown list, and that's different than what I'm going to talk about today, which is 7-S. Now, in this trellis is 8-S, which is Sugar Dragon, was renamed, but it actually had a sister seedling, in case you didn't know. And as you can see in Paul Thompson's book, he said that it was lost in frost at his place. But luckily he had given it to some California rare fruit growers to grow, and it survives today, so here it is. Now the new growth is slightly different than Sugar Dragon's. Comes out really green, and then it just starts to turn pink, so I'm excited to see what the new branches form. This is Sugar Dragon, or 8-S, and here's a new branch forming on 7-S. It's very green. Now the grower did say, in his opinion, he thought Sugar Dragon tasted a bit better, but time will tell. I'm excited just to grow this and try it and see for myself. So here's Sugar Dragon on the left, a little discolored. Looks happier up here, by the way. See, this is 8-S compared to 7-S. I mean, they basically look very, very similar. And they actually look similar because they have the same parent plant, which is Houghton, which is right here. So I finally got what I believe to be 100% the correct variety, or accurate variety, I should say, Houghton, which was one of the parents, and it was pollinated with Rixford here. And be careful with Rixford. There's a lot of mislabeled ones. In my opinion, Matt's Landscape, the website, they sell a G series plant, or sold a G series plant as Rixford. Rixford's very, very horny. And ironically, both of these in Paul Thompson's collections were both unknown varieties. And so he thought that this plant here is actually Solanacereus because it has a scale on the fruit, which is not a typical characteristic of Hylocereus. And in addition, this may not actually be a Guatemalan variety. It could be an Undatus. But who knows for sure? I think if I could afford it, I'd do DNA testing on all of my plants in time. But who knows, maybe I will. So we'll see. It's very expensive though. So anyways, there's your lesson. I hope that makes sense. Again, Houghton, Rixford created these two varieties. Sugar Dragon, which is 8-S, and then the lost, or sort of lost, 7-S, which is this one. I'm sure the fruit's gonna be similar. Good morning, dragon fruit growers. This is Paul, and today I'm going to do an update on some of Paul Thompson's hard-to-find varieties. So I've had these a few months now. This is a pot of G3. Now, Paul Thompson had 3 Guatemalan types, G1, G2, G3. And I've acquired this pot of G3, and it's been a very rapid grower in my experience so far. Look at that. It's doing just great. Getting almost full sun. So it is getting quite a bit of sun, but our summer's been mild so far. You can see the growth started skinny as it rooted. It was etoliated, but as it topped the trellis, it's just really thickened out. So really great new growth on these cuttings, I should say. Here's another one. This one had some ant damage on the tip, it looked like, so now it's going 2 directions, so I'm gonna have to train this one to go down. So that's G3 down here. I'm letting these grow at the base here, so I'll have a few nice cuttings. And this is Paul Thompson's 4S, which is actually a hard to find variety of Paul Thompson's S seedling series. And this one he described as having a pale pink, almost white fruit. So the most white fruit of the batch. And he described it as a dwarf grower. Now it's been growing really vigorously for me, but it does grow kind of smaller. Sorry about the lighting. A little bit smaller than his other seedlings that I have. But it's just doing great, and I'm really excited to see these already topping the trellis after just a few months. So 4S. And I have several more. Let me go show them to you now. Okay, so let's discuss a few more of Paul Thompson's hard-to-find varieties. Right here is a G1 that I collected. Really small cutting, but it's taking off. It's gonna do fine. So G1. Now I have all 3 of the G series. This is 5S, which is purple haze, but these are gigantic, and they were labeled, it's always been labeled as 5S. So the grower got these from Paul Thompson. Here's 6S, really hard to find, and they all created a bunch of flower buds, and now look at that, it's growing at the base, which is interesting. So it's the first one to have some growth. These are 7S, so I have a few cuttings of these. And you can see it's been very similar to Sugar Dragon, but a bit more green in my experience. This one is also etoliated as it produced roots, and once it rooted well and it's getting more sunlight, look at that, the growth is spreading out. So even more green at the tip. So just overall more green. That's my observations for 7S thus far. Now here is the parent plant, or one of the parents, Houghton, and this thing keeps making flower buds. That one is starting to turn a little yellow maybe. See if it's gonna abort. Hopefully it does. I want this to grow. And here's Paul Thompson's number 7. So not 7S. And this cutting produced a fruit. So this is Paul Thompson's number 7. Also, Paul Thompson had 2 Ocamponus varieties he collected. This one is the more spiny version. This one set a fruit on it as well. And this one had a flower last night, so I collected some pollen. And this one is his less spiny Ocamponus. In addition, I have 2 Jalas. I'm wondering if I have Jala 1 and 2. We'll see. This one keeps producing these flower buds. I've popped off 2 and still producing another one. At least it's starting to root. And of course this one, instead of a branch, what's it producing? Beautiful flower bud, look at that. These are Jala. So I think that's most of Paul Thompson's hard to find varieties I have in the collection. So there you go. Give us a like and a subscribe, we'll keep you updated. Good morning, fellow gardeners. This is Paul Thompson's number 7. Now this dragon fruit is similar to Sugar Dragon, and it's on a cutting, as you can see. Now this plant in Paul Thompson's book says that it's a little bit different than Sugar Dragon. because it will produce one or two thorns. And you can see he calls them black spines, 1/8 of an inch long, or two spines that are 1/16 of an inch long, and the plant will get horny in time. So it's similar to sugar dragon, but it will get more horny as the plant gets older. So I have two cuttings, and this one insisted on producing a fruit. And you can also see in Paul Thompson's book, he had a picture of the fruit, and I think mine's a little less plump, probably because it was again grown on a cutting. So I'm interested to see what this is like compared to sugar dragon. You can see they look a little bit different when next to each other. And I'm excited to taste this little guy. So I'm gonna put this in the fridge and let's have a taste in a little bit. Now remember, Danny says that you always want to cut it in a V when you remove a fruit if possible. And the reason why is because the plant will heal and water won't sit in here and cause rot, especially in our wet winters in Southern California. So when you do a V cut like that, the water, it will callus over and the water will not stay there. So that's what you want to do. All right, let me put this in the fridge and we'll give it a taste and a weigh in just a little bit. Okay, so here we go. Now this is a small fruit, but it should still pack some flavor. It does look very similar to sugar dragon. Beautiful colored flesh. Taste is very similar to sugar dragon in my opinion. So I'm gonna waste your money. This may not even be self-fertile, so we'll have to see. I don't think this is quite as sweet as that Arizona purple. Let's see. Let me get more juice out. Whoops. And again, you want to get it right out of the middle. And let's see. 18. Some respectable bricks, look at that. Not bad off of another cutting, huh? These plants are amazing. All right, let's get a full taste of this fruit. Very, very similar to sugar dragon in my opinion. We'll see what happens when we have a nice big fruit. It might be larger, but they're very similar DNA. Paul Thompson's number 7. The flesh might be a little bit lighter in color, but that's about the only observable difference I can see. Wonderful. Good morning, fellow dragon fruit growers. This is Paul, and today I thought I'd do a quick update on some of my more unique varieties, how they're doing this season. Now, first up is Paul Thompson's 4S. So I'm really excited to see how this turns out. It's reported to have a pale pink flesh, and it's recorded to be a dwarf grower. It's definitely been pretty vigorous, but it doesn't get as thick as some of the other S series. It's doing great. Really pretty. New growth. See it? So definitely a hard to find variety. We also have G3 here, which is another one of Paul Thompson's. Definitely hard to find. I've seen a few imposters out there. And hopefully this is the correct one. It's the most vigorous of the G series, in my experience. So it's been growing quickly. We've been getting a lot of fog every night. So the dragon fruit aren't so happy with that. You can see the growth was a bit attenuated because it started to grow before it had any roots, but it's doing fine now. Up above here we have Paul Thompson's 7S, which is the seedling sister of Sugar Dragon. So I'm excited to see how this one turns out. It grows very similar to Sugar Dragon, but the growth is greener. You can see it's just more green. It's definitely having a great season. Now over here is my Laverne Pink. I'm calling this Paul's Laverne Pink, not because I need a variety named after me, but because it's definitely different than what Spicy Exotics sells as Laverne Pink. You can see how long the thorns are on mine. It's most likely a seedling. You can see down here the original stem, very round, like a seedling would be. Now this thing has been putting out a lot of growth, but it has produced one fruit. And this was my favorite fruit to eat last season, so I'm excited to see how it turns out. Now I also have a few more over here that are pretty hard to find. Here is Paul Thompson's 6S, and this one just wanted to produce buds, flower buds for me this season. But it's getting some growth now, and I'm really excited to see how 6S turns out. It's gonna top the trellis this fall. So the 6S. Over here is Hyloceus lemerii. If you notice, it looks a lot like Pelora. Has some similar traits to it, the growth, I should say. Very beautiful, interesting variety. And the flower is supposed to be really unique. Over here is Jade Red. It's doing great. And then I'll show you one more today. It's right over here. I'm really excited about this one. This is Nambian Orange. Now, funny story about this variety. Nambian Orange is not orange. It's actually going to be a pink colored flesh. So I'm interested to see what this fruit tastes like. Supposedly it's a great fruit. It's been a decent grower. Grows kind of like a Guatemalan. So I had 2 cuttings, and now I have, I think, 4 or so. A little skinny, but they're gonna do just fine. Oh, and one more thing, I thought I'd show you this. I have a 5S here, and in Paul Thompson's book, he describes it having long spines. Now, I'm not sure if that's on the fruit, but the way it was written, it seems like it was long spines on the branches. So I found that really interesting, and that this one has been labeled different than Purple Haze. And it grows different too, so this is 5S. And last but not least, this one is Panama. Definitely an interesting looking variety. Don't know much about it. Panama. Really little spines, and it does put on a coat. See? Comes off easily though. Good morning, fellow dragon fruit growers. Look at this dark star. It's just under 1 1/4 pounds, or 554 grams. So what a beautiful fruit. Look at this. Paul Thompson's 9S. Now you can see here, it was renamed by Pine Island Nursery, but before that, Paul Thompson recorded having a unique flavor, and the flowers were unique with stigma lobes, split ends, and it was bifid. So the flower is unique on this variety compared to its seedling sisters. He also labeled it as having commercial potential. You can also see the flower here. It's a photo I took. And my source is from Matt's Landscaping. Now the website's been taken down, but I recorded it before it was taken down. I took some screenshots, and there's some mistakes on here. It's not self-pollinating. It does need to be cross-pollinated, and it is correct. He is right. The fruits do get 1 1/4 pounds, just like here. And they recorded saying that it has mild grape flavor, and it's sweet. So let's see for ourselves. I'm really excited to cut this open. Look at that beauty. Now they call it Dark Star because it's a little bit darker, the flesh, than some of its sister seedlings. Beautiful. Skin's a little bit on the thin side, but this thing's also really ripe, it looks like. So let's give it a shot. It's a really nice textured fruit. Wow. That's delicious. Really, really good. Okay, let's check out the brick score. See how much the sugar content is. Wow. It is kind of like a mild grape flavor. Really sweet. Sweet grapes, in my opinion. This definitely tastes like one of the sweetest so far that I've tasted this year. Oh, wow. Let me just get a little bit more of the juices here. And you can see the amount of flesh here. The ratio of the flesh to the seeds is just amazing. What delicious texture. I don't detect any earthiness. We're at a 19 5/10. Very respectable score. I'm going to take one more reading before I dive into this fruit, just to see if there's any differences. And again, you always want to take your reading from the same spot. You can see I'm doing it right here in the center. So 19 6/10. So just under 20. And it's delicious. What a beautiful fruit. You can see why Paul Thompson labeled this as having commercial potential due to the fruit size. And the overall flavor, I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10. This is just delicious. One of these underrated plants. Everybody's buying these trendy kind of varieties with unique names. But a lot of them are unproven. And this is just delicious. It has a mild, reminds me a bit of a lychee. Possibly a rambutan, if you've ever had that. Just a slight flavor, not the texture at all. Easily one of the best fruits of the year. So there you go. Dark Star 9S. One of Paul Thompson's hybrids. And I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. Delicious fruit. All right, give us a like, subscribe. Thanks for your time. Have a wonderful day. Take care.